In this video, I'm going to talk about analytical review in accounting, also called analytical procedures. I'm going to show you how it's currently done in standard industry practice and why this method has pitfalls for the unwary. I'm then going to show you how these pitfalls can be avoided using the latest R&D we've done at Galisteo Consulting Group using a patent-pending method we call Unsupervised Analytical Review. As you'll see, this method is not only able to catch anomalies and patterns in financial data that industry standard techniques may miss, it's also highly flexible and takes very little time to implement. Analytical procedures are defined in Statement of Auditing Standards No. 56 or SAS 56 as evaluations of financial information made by a study of plausible relationships among both financial and non-financial data. Essentially, what this means is a high-level review of accounting data to identify anything that stands out, for example, a big change in one category of expenses from one year to another. SAS 56 also gives a list of various different conditions that can quickly be discovered via analytical procedures. Auditors are required by SAS 56 to use analytical procedures when planning and reviewing all audits. So in audits, analytical procedures are more than just important, they are mandatory. Let's take a look for a moment at the industry standard approach to analytical procedures. In fact, the approach to analytical procedures is governed by checklists, just as for other components of an audit. These checklists are usually put together by an audit manager and may contain steps such as review expenses for any unusual changes. There might be one checklist for each component or each subcomponent of the financial statements. The audit staff in the field then follow the checklists. They obtain the relevant portion of data from the audit client's information system and they run their analysis. Analytical procedures are often one of the quickest industry standard ways of finding anomalies. But with multiple checklists, the time required can still add up quickly with numerous financial statement components. Interestingly, industry standard approaches may not be as reliable as they may first seem at catching all anomalies. Recent research has spotlighted the problem. The manager who compiles the checklist has what is called initial expectation bias. In a paper just published, one team of researchers clearly demonstrated this. They conducted an experiment where two sets of auditors were looking at the same data. One set was given knowledge of the unaudited balances while the other was not. The researchers found that the second set were significantly more likely to identify material misstatements, because without knowledge of the unaudited balances they were more open to formulating alternative hypotheses. It's easy to see why. Let's say a large misstatement exists in a financial statement component with a small unaudited balance. The audit manager compiling the checklists might be inclined to focus the audit team's efforts on other areas with larger or unaudited balances, missing the opportunity to discover the problem. At Galisteo Consulting Group, we have been working on patent-pending research and development, which offers a revolutionary new approach to analytical procedures, which we call Unsupervised Analytical Review. Essentially, the idea of unsupervised analytical review is to use computers and powerful algorithms to look directly at the raw accounting data in its entirety, instead of component by component. Computers are extremely good at detecting subtle patterns and anomalies in data, and we want to let the computer do this instead of relying on a human's judgment and sifting through mountains of data. We don't completely eliminate human judgment though, as you'll see. By using computers to take a holistic view of the data like this, we kill a number of birds with one stone. First, we completely sidestep the problem of initial expectation bias. If a pattern or anomaly is important in relation to the data as a whole, the computer will find it. Second, we don't have to subdivide the data artificially to run multiple analyses, so we save considerable time. Third, we can use exactly the same algorithms no matter what data we are looking at. So there's very little initial setup, and what constitutes an anomaly is completely determined by the dataset in question. This, by the way, is the essence of unsupervised algorithms. They work with virtually no expert configuration. So, let's take a look at how this works with some actual accounting data. I have here data from a proprietary accounting system stored in the SQL Server database. Galisteo's unsupervised analytical review algorithms are not platform specific, and they'll work with data from any major enterprise architecture. Usually, the financial transaction data in a database like this is stored in just one of the tables, although other tables may have lookup information. Though I could run unsupervised analytical review on any table or view I choose, let's say I want to do so on my transactional data. This would be the most common scenario. So, I first identify which table that is. If I want, I can join more than one table in a single view to bring in lookup information. The only other information I really need to know is, first, which column in the table is a logical one to order by, that might be a date, and second, which column contains the amounts. This is something important in determining the transaction's materiality. These three pieces of information, table name, amount, order by field, are all I need to configure unsupervised analytical review. From this point on, the process runs in a fully automated fashion, analyzing the entire dataset for patterns and anomalies. With a small dataset of 50,000 transactions, the entire process runs in under 5 minutes on a laptop. The process is highly scalable, allowing even datasets of millions of transactions to be analyzed on a PC. Anything that stands out in whatever way in the dataset will be found, with particular emphasis on the most material or largest dollar amount transactions or groups of transactions. The only thing remaining now is to present the results to the auditor, and this is done through a series of scatterplots viewable in Microsoft Excel. Each scatterplot presents an important pattern found by the algorithms in the source data. And when I say important, that takes into account both materiality, high monetary values, and prevalence. So we'd pick up not only on individually significant transactions, we'd also pick up on groups of smaller but similar transactions that stand out from the rest. And this makes it harder for a fraudster to fly under the radar. As auditors, we can decide how many scatterplots to look at depending on how deeply we want to dive into the data. With 100 scatterplots, we're always guaranteed to find the 100 most important patterns in the data. Each point on the scatterplot represents an individual transaction, and because we use the date field as an order by, the x-axis here corresponds to time. So we can quickly zero in on the needles in the haystack, the individual transactions or patterns that we might want to ask the client about. In this dataset, for example, one transaction stands out in particular, and it turns out this is a large real estate transaction, so this is exactly the kind of thing I'd want to look at as an auditor. Request the supporting documentation, for example. I also see a pattern with a seasonal fluctuation. I can find the transactions or codes that correspond to this and then ask the client about it. All of this helps me quickly gain an understanding of the business. And remember, the algorithms did not have to know anything industry specific or business specific to produce these results. So let's sum up. All we have to do with unsupervised analytical review is to point our algorithm at a dataset, specify an amount and an order by. We don't have to tell it anything else about the dataset, like what the columns are or what's in the columns. The algorithms zero in on the important patterns and anomalies, completely avoiding the problem of human expectation bias. The patterns and anomalies are then presented to a human auditor who can use judgment as it should be used to read the output and use it to decide what to ask the client about. And this is the essence of unsupervised techniques. We don't have to guide the computer every step of the way. As a final note, if you find this intriguing, you might also be interested in our recent research on unsupervised reconciliation, which follows a lot of the same philosophy. To view a video on this, search for Benefits of Unsupervised Reconciliation on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and please contact us if you have any questions.